Welcome to US Gamer's Virtual Spotlight, a look at classic games on Virtual Console and other services. This week we look at Klonoa 2 Dream Champ Tournament for Wii U Virtual Console. When I interviewed Namco's Hideo Yoshizawa a few years ago, I was disappointed to hear him say that the Klonoa series was, for all intents and purposes, dead. No one bought the Wii remake, he said. No one wanted to play Klonoa games. I was disappointed, but not really surprised. Yoshizawa was the director of the original Klonoa, and his excellent series has always faced an uphill battle, all the way back to the very start. When it debuted on PlayStation back in 1998, Klonoa Door to Phantomile felt like a game out of time. Centered around fairly simple Yoshi's Island-inspired platforming and cute cartoon mascot characters, Klonoa couldn't have been more out of step with the trends of its times if it tried. And yet it offered so much hidden depth beneath its tragically unhip surface. The platforming grew in complexity until it became a challenging puzzle action game in its later stages. The sweet fairy tale story shed its innocence midway through, ending on a decidedly heart-wrenching note. And the polygons used to render the old-school 2D visuals added a literal extra dimension to the gameplay, and they allowed the game camera to make grand, sweeping pans as Klonoa journeyed throughout the stages. It was the very definition of a sleeper hit and a cult classic. But that means hardly anyone bought it, of course. And when the sequel took on a harder, more cool edge, hardly anyone bought that either. The Klonoa series spent its entire life always lurking just beneath the surface of the mainstream, destined to languish in niche status. And so, as send-offs go, 2005's Klonoa 2 Dream Champ Tournament for Game Boy Advance feels like a nice wrap-up for the games. Of course, as you might expect of a game released for GBA in 2005, it also failed to make a splash on the market. Nevertheless, it happened, and now it's available again on Wii U Virtual Console. Being one of the handheld Klonoa adventures, Dream Champ Tournament lacks the slick visuals of its big siblings on consoles. Instead, similar to its two predecessors, including Empire of Dreams, also available on Virtual Console, it centers more on puzzle solving. Now that's not puzzle solving in the Professor Layton sense, where you're answering riddles, nor the puzzles like those in Resident Evil, where you're using cryptic doodads to unlock arbitrary mechanisms in some mysterious mansion somewhere. No, the portable Klonoas build on those final stages of the original PlayStation game, demanding you use the hero's array of jumping skills to reach the end of dozens of stages, each trickier than the last. Klonoa's basic skill set remains the same here as ever. He can jump, grab enemies, kick off from a captive enemy to double jump, and flap his ears to achieve some hang time, and that's pretty much it. Yet despite that basic tool set, Dream Champ Tournament gets pretty tricky after a few stages. Much of this complexity comes from the way enemies act. Many of them behave differently either when they're attacking you or when they're captive. There are also lots of tricky interactive elements in the environment, such as springboards or gusts of wind or boxes to weigh you down. All of these elements add up together, along with the standard control mechanics of the Klonoa series, to create a satisfyingly chewy action platformer. Little details like the way certain enemies squish down while you're carrying them come into play, forcing you to think about the direction and order in which you complete tasks. And for those who find cerebral gaming too dull, Dream Champ Tournament mixes things up by incorporating pure action stages as well. Each world has a few special action stages, like surfing or auto-scrolling platforming levels. And at the end of each world is a boss battle that also plays out as a race, where you're not so much fighting an enemy as you are trying to outpace it on the way to the end of a level. It's an interesting concept that puts your Twitch skills to work without feeling tacked on or out of place. The surfing levels really show off Namco's programming skills with a curved horizon reminiscent of Super NES shooter AXELAY. In fact, Dream Champ Tournament is a visual tour de force for the GBA, a fantastic looking game bursting with colorful graphics. While it lacks the sweeping vistas of the console games, it more than makes up for it by being one of the best looking original GBA creations ever. Not everything about the game hits the heights of perfection though. While the game brings together characters and locales and play mechanics from across the entire Klonoa series, making this feel like a great last hurrah, the story that ties it all together feels juvenile and slight. The melancholy atmosphere and stunning plot twists of the console games are sorely missed here, and not all of the race levels work as well as the creators had hoped. The imprecise visuals and unfortunate side effect of the sprite-based graphics make judging distances and edges a real pain, especially at the larger scale of the Wii U gamepad or an HD TV. The auto-scrolling stages where Klonoa faces out from the screen toward the player are hands down the worst part of the game, and they're as frustrating here as they were in Crash Bandicoot. Game developers, don't ever do this again. Despite its drawbacks, Dream Champ Tournament was sadly underappreciated at its time, kind of like the original Klonoa. And as with the original Klonoa, digital re-releases allow you to catch up on it for a pretty reasonable price. I recommend it. For USGamer.net, I'm Jeremy Parrish. For more in-depth looks at great games both new and old, Keep reading the site and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like all the cool kids do.